Senator Jeff Hayden is carrying the minimum wage bill. He's here to talk about what is in the package. Thanks for joining us, Senator.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So before we get into kind of the complexities on where the bill stands now, why don't you talk a little bit about where the dollar amounts are? I believe $950 for large employers.
Yeah, $950 for large employers. That rolls out over 3 years. $775 for small employers. We also have a training wage that would be for 16 and 17-year-olds that I think caps out at about $775. We also have a provision in there that takes a look at J1 visa folks that we're taking a good look at. We had a lot of people in the North Shore and the Brainerd Lakes area that come over for Europe that work over the summer. So we're taking a good look at that. We also have so the youth training wage component kind of work together, and they work with the small business component. But the big meat of this, or the big story, is that we're going to get up to $950 over the next 3 years, and we are going to have an inflator. In other words, we're going to index this to kind of a cadre of economic indicators that'll be capped at, I think, 3%. Each year. So the Department of Labor and Industry also will take a look at that, and depending upon what that looks like, it could go up to 3% a year. That allows people to kind of continue to make money, and they don't lose money as the economy grows. There also is a very special provision that if for some reason we go into the Great Recession again, which we hope we don't, but if we do and economic factors really aren't well for the wages to continue to grow, the Department of Labor and Industry, or the commissioner, will have the ability to take a look at that, put out a public notice, and potentially suspend the indexing, if you will, or the inflator. And then also a provision that if the economy got better, he or she would be able to kind of make that up. So that's kind of a new provision, this off-ramp, on-ramp proposal that I think made members much more comfortable with this ideal of indexing.
And Senator, the argument throughout this entire debate, especially by the GOP, is that a minimum wage, a raise to $950 an hour, could be a jobs killer, could be a business killer. The hospitality industry is very concerned about this. What's your response?
Well, I think that there's always cost. So there's food cost, there is rent, and labor costs should be something that they look at as well. I mean, if you think about it from that perspective, why should their labor costs stay flat? But the second thing is that they have real people working for them. And as costs go up for people, people need to get paid more money so that they can take care of their families. And often the very people who are at the minimum wage, those folks are spending money all the way. They don't have a portfolio. A lot of them don't have a savings. So every dollar they get goes right back into the economy. So if the economy starts to falter, we'll take a look at that. But the last time I looked, if I wanted to go have a hamburger, and sometimes I like to have a few of those, if I have to pay a nickel more, then maybe that's what I would do. But I just think that the sky's not going to fall and the world's not going to end because we pay low-paying workers a decent wage.
Okay, and Senator, this is going back onto the Senate floor on Wednesday. We're taping this on Tuesday. It kind of came out of nowhere, sprung out of nowhere, that it was in the Finance Committee the other day. Kind of explain the process that brought it back to committee and is no longer just a conference committee report.
Yeah, so last year we passed, the House and Senate passed two different versions of this. The House did $950 and they indexed it to CPI. We did $775 with no indexing or automatic inflator. At the last day of session last year, Representative Winkler called the conference committee. It was much too late for us to be able to come together. And then this year, over the summer, we listened to Minnesotans, and this year we came back together, and we weren't quite able to get there yet. Part of it is I think that there was a little bit of difference in philosophy in the two caucuses, but also we did a lot of things early, as you know. We did a tax bill. We had to take a look at the surplus, where there were just a lot of things that I think got in the way. Ultimately, as session starts to close or we start to wind down, the legislative leaders in both caucuses, along with people from the governor's office, kind of got to this new bill that we have. The problem was that because they're conference reports, we could not add, for instance, the J1 visa language, or we could not add the off-ramp and on-ramp and the dolly provisions. That would have kind of made it a substantially different bill, and the House has a really hard rule on that. So that was what we said, well, we got an agreement between the legislative leaders. Now what we need to do is figure out how to get it moving. and I just happened to have a bill that was sitting in the finance that, it had to deal with some vacation issues, but it was a good vehicle. So we felt like those, my friends to the right, and I understand it, felt like they didn't get a lot of notice. We've been talking about this minimum wage for an awfully long time. So what we were able to do was to bring this bill back through the Finance Committee and then move it forward with a lot of debate. And then tomorrow, I'm sure we'll have a good, long, old-fashioned Minnesota debate on if it's the right thing to do or not.
And are you ready for that?
I am. I'm going to wear a nice bow tie tomorrow and some comfortable shoes because I'm sure I'm going to be talking a lot on the floor.
And I'm sure we're all very surprised you'll be wearing a bow tie. Senator Hayden, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.